A beautiful meditation. Thank you, Michael. Set me up perfectly. And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is my pleasure to be able to speak this morning. Michael was supposed to have a wedding, but it was canceled. And change, the only constant. I always say that's a good thing when someone has the good sense to cancel a marriage before it happens. Really? Very good sense. I also, because it's Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day to all of us who have been able to bring forth that change in our lives. But I also wanted to acknowledge the women who have been deprived of raising their children. There are many. Sometimes, I remember a girl in my high school all of a sudden just disappeared. And then she went to visit her aunt, and word got around that she had a baby and she had to give it away. But the change that brought in that young woman's life, that wasn't correct English, but anyway, you know what I mean.
It's okay.
I always thought about that. It must have been devastating. And then if there's ways that families come back together, children are found through these adoption things, whatever happens, maybe there's a stillborn birth, there's all kinds of things that happen for women that really don't make for a happy Mother's Day. But I want to acknowledge that there is a way for women who have that experience and dread Mother's Day, that what really needs to happen for those women, in my humble opinion, is that there needs to be forgiveness of the self. And then let that Divine Mother that Michael spoke about, gosh, this is getting me, I didn't know I was going to do this, but anyway, the Divine Mother to come in and to nurture their own soul and to heal that heart that was tended to rip. And then through the meditation I was thinking about hearts really can never be broken. The heart is whole and complete. It's the seat of the soul. May feel like it's broken, but it can never be broken. But it comes through an awareness of just forgiving the self and letting us bloom and grow and be the change that God wants to be by means of us, and flourish and nourish and nurture from that mother aspect of our being. And as Michael says, even you men you have the mother essence of you, the female energy of this triune nature that we have. So you can end that, Carolyn. That's not what my lesson is about. Well, it is about change. I was honest to God, didn't know I was going to do that, but it needed to be said. So here we are. We live in this galaxy of 100 billion stars that change position at the super speed of light. Just willy-nilly. One house and one planet and your rising sign and your main sign or whatever that stuff is, it all changes, and it just changes without us directing anything. It just changes, and it has an influence on us to the degree that we aren't aware. There's an incredible number of our individual body cells that die every single day, only to be replaced immediately by new ones. In fact, Deepak Chopra says that our liver is recreated every 6 months. The heart is repaired, rejuvenated, changed through the cellular process that goes on just naturally in our own bodies. This is an amazing system, this thing called our body, in which we live and move and have our being, directed by a spirit that is not bound by the body, but animates it. And then the stock market varies daily. Oh, let me tell you folks, if you live by the stock market, emotions are going to go up and they're going to go down. And it's not a good thing to live by the stock market because of the changes that happen. The weather, yesterday it was 75 degrees, today it's supposed to be 85. By Wednesday it's going to be 101. Can you believe that? So, you know, some are going to be cursing that change in the weather. Not, I don't curse much. There are threats of war in the Ukraine. Russia seems to be the aggressor, and a lot of us are trembling in fear or just dreading the changes that that aggression might reveal. Not in the not too distant future, actually. There's a score of infants born as I speak in this moment, definitely changing the woman's life. She becomes the mother for perhaps the first time and maybe once again and again and again. And of course the birth of an infant ripples out and touches the fathers, if there's one involved, or the families and relatives. It just touches out and changes so many things. And then there are any number of deaths that are reported in the enterprise record every day. And of course, we know the changes that wrought, especially with Reverend Louis' death last October. We've seen what's happened here. We've felt it. We've known that. The American economy is a constant change. Unemployment is up and it's down. Jobs are lost, jobs are gained. Inflation is down, taxes are up, and we're afraid they're going to go up again. Our personal feelings change. I mean, just change is the only constant. It all depends on what's happening around us. And most importantly, whatever change is happening is how do we perceive it? What is the thought process that goes on in our mind when we expect one thing and something else happens? What happens to us? Well, as you can see, I could go on and on about it, but change is the only constant. Except when it comes to a vending machine. You never get change out of the vending machine. I've tried it. So over the years of watching the things that are out of my control, I find people, and I have to include myself in that, resistant to the changes at hand. Anybody ever resist a change?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a few of us. 4. The coping mechanisms of resistance causes distress, disconnect, depression, and or others tend to manipulate situations to try to gain control, not lose. And of course, none of these strategies, and they are strategies, allow us to discover ways that we can effectively cope with the changes when they come. And trust me, come they will. Change is the only constant. So in order to live productively, we need to let go of the resistance and be mindful of, Reverend Michael said it this morning, what's next? What's next? Ernest Holmes, the author of our textbook, The Science of Mind, writes this on page 385. Nature will not let us stay in any one place too long. She will let us stay just long enough to gather the experience necessary to the unfoldment and advancement of the soul. This is a wise provision, for should we stay here too long, we would become too set, too rigid, too inflexible. And when the change comes, we should welcome it with a smile on our lips and a song in our heart. When the change comes, we should welcome it with a smile on our lips and a song in our heart. I bet Jim will do that. Does that.
Got one coming.
Yeah. Well, oddly enough, this excerpt is from the chapter on immortality. And it's referring to the change from this life into the next. But when I read it, I thought, that applies to our everyday living. If we stay too long in any one experience, we get bored. Or if it's not to our liking, we get resentful. Or we just don't want to be there anymore, and we get complacent, and then we don't do anything about it except complain. So, I mean, is that how we really, really want to live our lives? I don't think so. I think that's why we're here. And we all probably all know people who do this, and of course none of us do it. No. Just maybe once in a while. But it reminds me of Edwin Gaines, the South Georgia prosperity lady. And some of you have been to her workshops. We used to have them over at Hillary Lane. And I don't think, did she ever come to California Park? I don't think she did. But she was a unity minister. And she's demonstrated prosperity, great prosperity in her life. And then during her workshop, she said this. She said, we should always agree to change in our lives, even if we don't like it, with this phrase. Ain't it great? And she said it with this southern drawl. She said, ain't it great? And she'd have all of us say it. She'd say, ain't it great? And so when I heard people start saying it in the church, yeah, I just lost my job. Ain't it great? Reverend Louis died. Ain't it great? I mean, really? Do we have to? Well, folks, Peg Bailey came and said that Reverend Louis, she's a intuitive, they call her. She said that she's seen him with a sign around his neck that says, Ambassador of Joy. Ain't it great? Ain't it great? He's the ambassador of joy. And then she went on to say, he's in and out of all the shops in Chico, bringing his joy, sprinkling his fairy dust over everyone. Ain't it great? He couldn't do that if he were still here. Oh, he was in and out of all the shops, I'm sure, but not the way he's doing it now. I mean, he's everywhere. So, ain't it great that now we get to step up and start doing some of the things that he did and we took for granted? I just became of a list of things that he used to do that either Michael's had to do or somebody else was doing. I think Keith Robbins was doing a lot of it, and he can't do it anymore. One of the things was setting up the kitchen for a social hour every Sunday. He used to come at 9. In addition to the cleaning, he was setting up, making coffee, preparing that for all of us so we would enjoy it. So I thought, well, I guess this is mine to do. I made up sign-up sheet for a commitment for 2 people on every Sunday, starting next week, to come at 9. Is it 9 o'clock early or 9:30?
9:30.
Oh, 9:30. Come at 9:30 in the morning, make the coffee, and there's directions out there, everything that needs to be done. And the tables will be set up, and then you make the coffee, you put out the juice, you put the ice in, and then you just wait. But we need 2 people to do that every Sunday because it's not being done. I did it this morning. Somebody else made coffee. Reverend Michael shouldn't have to be doing that. This is our church. We need to step up. Okay. Ain't it great?
Ain't
it great? Ain't it great? We get to do that? Ain't it great? Yay. Okay. All right. So the sign-up sheet is in there. Ain't it great? Reverend Eileen is gone?
Carolyn, can I mention
Yes.
something?
Yes.
Louis also did the flowers, and the next 2 Sundays need people to bring
No.
flowers in.
I'm doing next Sunday.
Oh, never mind, the
The
Sunday after.
Sunday after somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if you could do that, please volunteer to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you for letting me barge in.
Yes. Ain't it great?
Ain't it great?
Well, ain't it great? Reverend Eileen is gone for however time she's going to be gone and whatever she's going to do next. She has given us the opportunity to fill the void of all the duties that she's been doing. So Reverend Michael has asked for some office help. Eileen was great at that in organization. There's some things that we won't be able to do that she's done. But someone needed to make friendship packets. Guess who did them this week? Ain't it great? That can be done at home, I'm sure. So you could talk to Reverend Michael about that and see who would like to just sit and stuff those. You probably don't need, probably maybe once a month you just need to do that. That's no big chore. Ain't it great? So, I'm going to say these things, and then after each sentence I want you to say, ain't it great? Okay. I lost my job.
Ain't it great?
You lost your job.
Ain't it great?
The kids are rebelling.
Ain't it great?
I'm pregnant.
Ain't it great?
Oh! You're pregnant.
Ain't it great?
Yeah, oh. Yeah, right. Okay. But I think you get the idea. What needs to happen here is a change in perception. We must change from looking at the condition, at the situation. Dr. Holmes says we must turn entirely away from the condition. Now, I'm not talking about denial here. I'm not saying that you just pretend that this isn't happening. You know full well it's happening, but what you're doing is a conscious effort. It's an attitude of consciousness that you're building and affirming in your own mind that this thing that is before you is here, but it doesn't have to stay. So I'm turning my awareness from that and turning toward the truth of my being, which is the intelligence of God. And I'm going to bring forth in my own mind the ability to know that there is a power for good in the universe that is working its way through me and through every situation and condition in my life, and I expect the good. Ain't it great?
Yes.
Ain't it great that we have been created in the image and likeness of this infinite power of a universal spirit, a universal power for good that is available to all of us. That is, can you feel it? It's here, present, active through each one of us in this room, in this moment, at all times. Available to each one of us. No matter where we are, what we're doing, how we're feeling, whether you think your heart is broken, your job is lost, the house is going away, you have no friends, your boyfriend got lost, doesn't matter what is going on. It doesn't matter. Ain't it great? Ain't it great? It's the power of infinite good that desires to express itself through you, but it can't do it when there's resistance. Not when you're digging your heels in and saying, I want to do that. Who do you think you are? Who? No, I'm not going there. When God is speaking through us, that still small voice, when we know we should do something and we don't do it, that's resistance. When we turn away, when we get angry, when we blame, when we shame, when we do whatever strategy it is to keep us from moving forward, that's resistance. That's the personality of each one of us, in us. And we all do it from time to time. But after you start practicing the science of mind, you become more and more aware, more and more able to say, no, wait, I need to look at this differently. My perception needs to change. What are the possibilities here? Edmund Burke, a great British parliamentarian, stated this: nothing in progression can rest on its original plan. We might as well think of rocking a grown man in the cradle of an infant. Can you imagine? That was the end of the quote. We might as well think of rocking a grown man in the cradle of an infant. Can you imagine you as a grown person still trying to fit into the cradle in which your mother rocked you? We just don't do that, do we? Can you imagine still riding your tricycle as a grown person? You haven't let go of that? I mean, these are silly things, but there are other things that we hold on to that are just as silly. But we don't think so. We think we have a right to do this. These are mine. I made this. Well, we need to let go of the ego. Ego, edging God out. E-G-O. Don't edge God out of your life. Because when you do, it creates static in your life. It doesn't let you listen clearly. It doesn't let you move forward. The Chinese have a wonderful philosophy in their symbols for the word of change, and I hope no one writes Chinese in here. But I copied this off the internet. I drew it off the internet. So the left side says, this symbol says that the word for change is danger. But then they have another character that for the word change, which means opportunity. It's kind of like two sides of the same coin. One is danger, one is opportunity. But it's all in perception. At least they have two words, to describe. Yeah, sometimes we perceive change as danger. Sometimes we perceive change as opportunity. But what is it going to be in our lives? If we continue to see what's happening in our lives, the changes that come forth, as something dangerous, as something that's going to harm us or do something to us, then that's what we get. It's fear. Fear operating instead of faith. Opportunity is opening your mind to the faith of the thing that is and can be next for us. So, when we think we're in danger, the most immediate reaction people have is that of adrenaline, the discomfort that adrenaline, when it pumps. Do you know what that is? We've all had that happen. It's the threat or the jeopardy to the status quo. Now, sometimes the adrenaline, we are in danger. If you step out into the street and a car is coming, yes, there's that thing in us that is a warning sign. You don't stay in the street, you get back. So you use the adrenaline to take action and move you out of the way of danger. And then that opens a new opportunity to look both ways and cross the street when appropriate. Again, that's a simple thing, but you know what I mean. The thing is when we are threatened, when we feel like we're in danger, we often don't think clearly. So the task for all of us is to be able to begin to train our minds and continue to train our minds. I've been in this teaching for 45 years, since 1969. Yeah, this is my 45th year. It's actually 45 and a half years, because I came on January 6, 1969. But who's counting? It's just such a change. Boy, talk about a change in someone's life. It changed, it saved my life, this teaching has. And so we have to train ourselves to think opportunity. Opportunity. Ain't it great? Ain't it great that we have the ability to be able to look at a condition, feel the fear, and then go, wait a minute. Ain't this great? I have an opportunity. I wonder what's going to happen next. God has a great plan for me in this situation. Now, I'm not talking about the plans that the other churches talk about. I don't think God has planned out our lives, because I think we all have choice. But the God as me individually, knows what it wants to produce through me. And all I have to do is become aware of that. And when I am doing that, something powerful and wonderful happens. So, perception is the key. There's a wonderful story about a macaw parrot perched in a hotel restaurant, and it may be that parrot down in San Diego or Riverside, that Riverside Hotel, I forget the name of it. But anyway, this parrot, there's two of them, but there's one that's really a talker. But there was a man who reached out to touch the parrot, and the manager yelled and said, "Don't get too close to that bird, it may bite you." About that time, a waitress came by and said, "Oh, he's a really sweet bird. He'll give you a kiss if you like." And she puckered up, and sure enough, the bird gave her a kiss. So one person is fearful, the manager, and then he passes it on to another person. Now, that person can accept the fear and continue to operate under that perception that that bird is very dangerous, unless, as the waitress comes along and changes, she could change his perception and say, "Watch this. This is something positive." Well, we have to become the change that we want to see. We have to, when someone says, "Don't," we have to evaluate. We have to discern. We have to say, "What is this right for me?" We have to really know ourselves so that we can make the discernment as to how our perception is going to be. Someone looks upon the same object, finds it sweet and loving, and lives an entirely different reality. The other looks upon it as danger and fearful, and they live out of that reality. So what is the truth? Whatever we think it is, we will make it to be. The truth, whatever we think it is, we will make it to be. And of course, we always prove what we believe. If we're in fear, we will avoid, deny, blame, and shame our way into keeping the status quo. Our perception really is the only way that we have to deal with changes that are happening in our lives. And we often don't want to deal with it. There are times when maybe you need to step back and say, I'm going to wait a day. And if the answers keep coming up, what you need to do next, and you continue to deny and not do, then you will become like the Dead Sea. There's no inlet and no outlet. It's stagnation. There's no movement. But if you've taken a step back and you keep hearing the same thing, I always think if I hear it 3 times, I'm moving forward. So we need to stop limiting God to our beliefs. And let God work unlimited ideas through us, because we have the intelligence to do that. God is the intelligence that moves us into action. So calling on God for help allows us to let go of the lesser so that we can accept the greater in our lives. And when we do that, we often do the impossible. So what I've done is I've created an acronym for change, and it's on the other side of the symbol that I've given you for the Chinese words for change. And this is what they say. The first one, standing for C, challenge, the opportunity to get out of your comfort zone. H, halt negativity. Catch yourself in your fear thoughts and change it into faith. Power of God is working right here and now. A is the acceptance. Be flexible. If resisting, bend rather than break. And then N is nurture. Love yourself. Don't get too tired, hungry, angry, or lonely. And you can use HALT there for the nurturing. HALT comes from an alcoholic anonymous group thing. It's don't get too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired. Because when you do, your ability to change your perception goes down. And then G is gratitude, affirm. Ain't it great? And then E is for enthusiasm. The root word is entheos, and Random House defines it as having a God within. And trust me, we have God within. We have the power of infinite good, always working by means of us to reveal itself as all that we are. So we need to be willing to change when it comes. Greet it with a perception that it is good and very good. In fact,
Ain't it great?
and so it is. So it is.